A man working on a skyscraper plunges 47 stories, and he's now well on his way to a full recovery.
Alcides had just begun to lower the platform when one of the two cables holding it snapped. He spent 3 weeks in a coma.
If you are a believer in miracles, this would be one.
You fell from up there down to here. And here you are.
Yes, sir.
Luck isn't just about finding a dollar or dodging traffic. Sometimes it's about surviving the impossible without any hope of assistance from others. Join us as we dive deep into the stories of some people who defied the odds. From being lost in the wild for weeks as a teen to going unconscious while paragliding, these stories will make you rethink the idea of luck.
He was washing windows 47 stories when his scaffolding gave way. Alcides Moreno and his brother were in a free fall.
This guy's experience with almost losing everything is like something out of an action movie. But this was all too real. As a window washer in Manhattan alongside his brother Edgar, Alcides Moreno faced heights that would make most of us weak in the knees. Yet they braved it together, scaling skyscrapers day in and day out. That is, until that chilling December day in 2007 when their worst nightmare unfolded before their eyes. They were working on the solo tower when their platform suddenly broke loose, which sent them hurtling down a staggering 47 stories to the ground. That is nearly 500 feet! Edgar tragically lost his life in the fall, leaving Alcides in a fight for survival. But against all odds, when rescuers arrived, they found Alcides alive, conscious, and remarkably sitting up. His survival seemed nothing short of a miracle. He was rushed to the hospital, where he underwent a series of complex procedures, receiving an astonishing 24 pints of blood and 19 pints of plasma. By the following June, he defied the odds once again, walking and talking. How did he do it? Alcides credited his training, recalling instructions to lay flat and grip the platform tightly in the event of a fall. Remarkably, he avoided getting hurt. These are the two factors that often prove life-threatening in such accidents. He was unable to return to his window washing job, but Alcides received a substantial settlement after investigations revealed the scaffolding company's negligence. This survival story may sound like the stuff of Hollywood, but for Alcides Moreno, it's a sad memory of his last moments with his brother. Feeling exposed. Flying can be fun for some, but for others, it's a nerve-wracking experience. Especially after hearing about the terrifying deal of British Airways Flight 5390. This story will have you rethinking air travel. It all began with routine maintenance on the captain's side windscreen, but a critical error was made when the wrong screws were used during the replacement. Despite this oversight, the plane was cleared for takeoff, and passengers boarded the flight bound for Malaga, unaware of the danger that awaited them. Just minutes into the flight, at an altitude of 17,300 feet, disaster struck. The improperly installed window pane gave way. This caused rapid decompression and chaos within the aircraft. The force of the decompression tore the cockpit door off its hinges. Captain Lancaster found himself dangerously pinned halfway out of the plane, with his feet wedged against the control column. Now imagine, even during all this chaos, the plane entered a nosedive, and First Officer Atchison struggled to regain control. The cabin crew fought their way into the cockpit to free the throttles, which led to Atchison being able to stabilize the aircraft. But this scenario was not without harm to the crew and the captain, who endured extreme conditions outside the plane. Just imagine being 17,000 feet up in the air without anything surrounding you to keep you safe. Against all odds, Captain Lancaster survived the harrowing ordeal, and the quick actions of the crew saved the lives of all 81 passengers. The incident prompted a thorough investigation and led to improvements in maintenance procedures to prevent such a tragedy from occurring again. Despite the trauma, Captain Lancaster's strength was evident as he returned to flying within months after the incident. What a hero, right? But would you take a flight after knowing this story? Mine madness.
Incredible video shows 9 Congolese miners unexpectedly popping out of a collapsed gold mine. The video shows a man frantically digging with a spade.
Mining is often described as one of the toughest jobs out there, and the cobalt miners in the Congo know this all too well. These brave individuals risk their lives every day to extract a mineral essential for making batteries, but the conditions they face underground are nothing short of terrifying. In March 2023, tragedy struck when a mine collapsed, which trapped a group of miners deep underground. The situation quickly turned dangerous as they found themselves pinned down in darkness, with the ceiling crumbling around them. For many miners, this nightmare scenario is all too real, and the risks they face are staggering. Fortunately, there were others on the surface who sprang into action. Teams worked around the clock frantically with their bare hands to reach their trapped colleagues and friends. But time was running out, and the unstable ground threatened to unleash more chaos. Despite the dangers, the rescuers pressed on. They dodged falling rocks as they worked to free the trapped miners. Can you believe that all 9 miners came out of the rubble one by one, and none of them was harmed? Imagine the relief on everyone's face when they found out that everyone was all right. It was a moment of relief and gratitude as they were pulled to safety, escaping the darkness and danger below. This really shows us the risks at work sites like these are high, that too without any SOPs. Paragliding gone wrong.
I was praying, no, please not here, not now. Only to survive and to concentrate on what I can do.
Next up, we have Iwa Wisniewska's terrifying experience during a paragliding training session in February 2007. She was excited to take it to the skies after putting in hours of work in training. As Iwa prepared for the Paragliding World Championships in Australia, she found herself in the midst of a violent rage by Mother Nature that would test her limits in ways she never imagined. She was caught in an impossible situation and propelled skyward at terrifying speeds of 20 meters per second. As she lost consciousness, she was at the mercy of the elements. At this point, she was falling down to dizzying heights of 32,634 feet. That is higher than the peak of Mount Everest. For nearly half an hour, Wisniewska remained unconscious because of the freezing temperatures and winds exceeding 50 miles per hour. When she regained consciousness, she found herself surprisingly navigating out of the situation and landing near a farm. Yes, this whole thing happened while she was still up in the air. The sheer improbability of Iwa's survival left even seasoned paragliders surprised. When she described her scenario, everyone said it was similar to winning the lottery 10 times in a row. It's clear that Iwa's escape from the jaws of nature's fury was nothing short of miraculous. Juliane Kupske. On Christmas Eve of 1971, 17-year-old Juliane Kupske boarded Lanza Flight 508 with her mother, Maria, in Lima, Peru. Little did they know, they were about to embark on a journey of survival against all odds. Mid-flight, the plane met a storm and got torn apart. It resulted in the plane hurtling Juliane out of the aircraft at 10,000 feet. Yes, she was without a parachute. No chance of survival, right? Well, think again. Juliane survives the fall, thanks in part to her seat being ripped out with her, which created makeshift air resistance. Despite facing challenges, Juliane's journey was far from over. She was lost and alone in the rainforest, where she battled starvation, infection, and of course the wildlife. Fortunately, she was armed with survival skills from her upbringing in the rainforest, so she navigated the terrain and walked for days. She followed a stream in search of help. After an agonizing 11 days, Juliane's patience paid off when she stumbled upon a boat and a hut used by local fishermen. With their aid, she was finally rescued and airlifted to safety. But Juliane's survival comes at a heartbreaking cost. Her mother, Maria, and many other passengers did not survive the crash. It was just Juliane there, all alone against the world. When she returned to Germany, Juliane pursued a research career. She specialized in mammalogy and eventually took over as director of the Panguana Research Center in Peru. What an incredible story, right? But wait, because we are just getting started. Anatoly Bugorsky. Now this story takes us back to 1978. Anatoly Bugorsky was a theoretical physicist in Russia who had an extraordinary workplace mishap. He was investigating a malfunction in a particle accelerator when he accidentally got in the way of a high-energy proton beam. Now, this is not just a normal beam. A high proton beam can be life-threatening. As Anatoly Bugorsky would understand, Despite receiving a whopping dose of radiation, he initially felt fine and continued his work. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Later that day, the left side of his face swelled up, revealing the path of the beam. Anatoly was rushed to Moscow for treatment, where doctors expected the worst. Surprisingly, Anatoly survived, though not without consequences. The left side of his face became numb, and he lost hearing in one ear, replaced by a constant ringing. And this is where it gets fascinating. Despite these challenges, his intellect remained intact, and he even completed his PhD. Can you believe that? Over the years, he experienced occasional seizures and some facial oddities, like one side of his face not aging. Just imagine that, getting old on one side. But Anatoly kept on working in physics. Due to Soviet secrecy, he couldn't discuss his experience publicly for years, but after the Soviet Union fell, his story became known, and it has since fascinated the world. Julie McSorley and Liz Cottrell.
All of a sudden, I was sitting in the back seat and it completely lifted up out of the water. I was down. I mean, it happened so fast.
In November 2020, Julie McSorley and Liz Cottrell were kayaking in San Luis Obispo, California. The ocean was full of tourists and marine life that day, as humpback whales feasted on fish in the bay. Now, for safe whale watching, experts advise keeping a distance of at least 300 feet. Unfortunately, Julie and Liz misjudged this distance and soon found themselves in a dangerous situation. A group of fish were swimming right next to their kayaks, which was a clear sign they were in the whale's feeding zone. Despite the warning signs, it was too late. Suddenly, they realized they were trapped inside a humpback whale's mouth. Imagine the horror. These magnificent creatures can grow up to 56 feet long and weigh as much as 44 tons, which is enough to swallow 2 kayakers whole. But here's the twist. Humpback whales may be huge, but their throats are surprisingly small, about the size of a human fist. Yes, that is small. Their feeding mechanism involves scooping up water and fish, then filtering them through bristle-like baleen plates. When the whale realized its mistake, it quickly spat Julie and Liz back out, unharmed. So if you ever find yourself in a whale's mouth, don't fret because the whale doesn't want you there either. Chocolatey rescue.
Fue como algo increíble que yo pensaba que estaba soñando. Yo era una pesadilla.
Patricia Borges worked at the Pennsylvania chocolate factory, surrounded by the delightful scent of chocolate filling the air. But suddenly, there was a strange whiff of gas lingering around. Patricia knew that a smell like that couldn't be ignored, so she flagged it up to her supervisor, hoping for a quick fix. Unfortunately, no action was taken. Then out of nowhere, boom! An explosion rocked the factory. Chaos erupted, and Patricia found herself in a nightmare, tumbling into a vat of liquid chocolate. It sounds like a scene from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But here's where it gets crazier. Instead of being a sticky situation, the chocolate became her lifeline, protecting her like a shield from further harm. Still, Patricia was not out of the woods yet. Hours passed, but just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a team of rescuers burst onto the scene. They rushed her away to safety. And though she was cold, battered, and barely in her senses at the moment, Patricia made a full recovery. Now that's a story to tell at the dinner table. With the dessert, of course. Mouth to mouth. Now, prepare yourself for a mouthy tale. This is the real story of Paul Templar, a safari guide whose encounter with a hippo turned into a terrifying fight for survival. Paul and his clients were peacefully navigating Zimbabwe's Zambezi River when chaos erupted. A huge hippo, which resembled a Range Rover in size, emerged from the depths and tackled one of the canoes, sending Paul's friend flying. Maybe he didn't like the color of the canoes. As Paul rushed to help his comrade, the hippo set its sights on him and charged like a torpedo through the water. Just when Paul thought it couldn't get any worse, in a terrifying twist of fate, he found himself trapped waist deep inside the hippo's gaping mouth.
Templar was trapped in something slimy that smelled like rotten eggs. He realized he was inside the hippo.
Yes, you heard that right. He was enveloped in darkness and slime. Miraculously, he managed to wriggle free, only to be dragged back under by the relentless animal. For what felt like an eternity, Paul battled against the intense force of the hippo's jaws. His survival hung by a thread. Finally, the hippo spat him out, leaving him battered and broken but alive. Paul's ordeal left him with a hurt arm, deep fear, and unimaginable pain. Yet, against all odds, He survived to tell the tale. What's worse is it took him 8 hours to get to a hospital with a surgeon who could operate on him. Eventually, years later, Paul penned a book to share his extraordinary journey. I wonder what it would be like to be inside the mouth of a hippo. Does it smell? Dougal Robertson. Dougal Robertson was a former British Navy sailor turned dairy farmer. In 1971, he had a very unique midlife crisis with his family. They wanted to go on an adventure, so the whole family set sail on a 43-foot-long schooner to journey around the world. Their voyage took them to various ports over 17 months, but their adventure took a terrifying turn on June 15th, 1972. While they were near the Galapagos Islands, they encountered a pod of killer whales. Now they had expected this, but never really prepared themselves for such a scenario. Unusually, the orcas tackled their boat, forcing the family to flee to a lifeboat and dinghy as their schooner sank. With limited supplies, they faced a daunting struggle for survival. Their diet mainly consisted of turtles. This had its own risks, but anything for survival, right? So they utilized the meat for sustenance and the fat for warmth. The family was lost at sea for 38 days, and their trial finally ended when a Japanese fishing trawler rescued them on July 23rd. Despite the terrifying experience, the Robertson family made it through and returned to land safely, undoubtedly with a newfound appreciation for solid ground. Well, I think we all know the Dougals stayed in for the next holidays. Fainted tale.
A woman faints, falls under a moving train. Miraculously, she survived.
Now let's go back to April 2022. The streets of Buenos Aires were bustling, and commuters were about their daily routines. Among them was a woman waiting at a train station. Little did she know, this day would be anything but ordinary. As she stood on the platform, a sudden wave of dizziness swept over her. She stumbled forward and fell onto the tracks. Everyone around her was horrified and didn't know what to do. No one came to her help, and the train came, and strangely the lady vanished. It seemed as if she was swallowed whole by it, but then there was a faint cry. To everyone's surprise, she was alive. It turned out that by some miraculous stroke of luck, she had managed to slide just inches beneath the carriages as they thundered overhead. Just imagine, just 1 inch at the wrong angle and she would be gone. Rescuers rushed to her aid and pulled her out from her hiding spot beneath the platform's edge. What's crazy about this whole story is that the woman was untouched from the whole situation. Doctors later said that her fall was due to a sudden drop in blood pressure. Harrison O'Keene. In May 2013, Harrison O'Keene was working as a cook on the tugboat Jaskin 4 off the coast of Nigeria. During his shift, the vessel encountered an unexpected strong swell that caused it to capsize and quickly sink to the ocean floor, about 30 meters below the surface. Amidst this sudden disaster, O'Keene miraculously found himself in a small air pocket within the ship's overturned hull, surrounded by the cold, deep waters of the Atlantic. For nearly 3 days, O'Keene was trapped underwater in complete darkness, managing to survive in extremely challenging conditions. The cold was intense, and he was wearing only his boxer shorts, which offered little protection against the chilling environment. Despite these adversities, he managed to maintain his composure and focus on the possibility of rescue. The rescue came in an unexpected manner. A team of divers was dispatched to the site, primarily to recover bodies assumed to be lost in the wreckage. However, as they navigated through the sunken ship, they heard faint tapping sounds. Following these sounds led them to O'Keene. Remarkably still alive in his air pocket, the divers were astounded to find him and immediately worked to ensure his safe extraction from the wreckage. They provided him with emergency diving gear and carefully guided him back to the surface.
Put your head underwater and breathe comfortably, okay?
Making sure to manage the potential dangers of decompression sickness after such a long exposure to deep water pressure. Joan Leslie Murray. For many thrill seekers, skydiving ranks high on the adventure list, but jumping out of a perfectly good plane voluntarily isn't fun, to me at least. In skydiving, the best case scenario is that you survive But let me introduce you to Joan Leslie Murray, one incredibly lucky and unlucky skydiver. Back in 1999, Joan, who was a novice skydiver at that time, faced a nightmare scenario. Her main parachute failed to deploy from 14,500 feet. Plunging toward the ground, she managed to open her emergency chute just 700 feet above the earth. However, she lost control, rushing downward at 80 miles per hour. As if that wasn't bad enough, Joan landed on a fire ant mound and was stung over 200 times. But here's where luck kicked in. Those ant stings actually kept her heart beating until help arrived. Have you ever heard of a bigger blessing in disguise? Despite spending 2 weeks in a coma and undergoing several medical procedures, Joan miraculously made a full recovery. Now, you'd think that experience would put her off skydiving for life, right? Not Joan. Just 2 years later, she was back in the sky, defying the odds and earning herself the title of a true anti-hero. Exploding toilet. We usually joke around about explosions in the restroom, but experiencing one firsthand from the toilet itself? That's something most of us do not have an experience with. However, this guy does. 58-year-old New Yorker, Michel Pierre, had to go about his business one fateful day in 2013. As Michel finished up and reached for the toilet handle, all he was expecting was a simple flush. However, the handle triggered an explosion that sent porcelain shrapnel flying in all directions. Yes, I know you are thinking the same thing. It was similar to a giant poopy fireball. The force of the explosion propelled Michel backward, knocking him unconscious. When he came back to his senses, he found himself surrounded by broken porcelain and pools of water, and not the clean kind either. He called for emergency assistance and was rushed to the hospital and eventually made a full recovery. So, what caused this toilet nightmare? It wasn't an evil toilet clown, as one might fear. Instead, it was a consequence of routine plumbing work in the building that day. With the water shut off, flushing the toilet created an immense buildup of pressure in the pipes, which led to the explosive chain of events. Crazy, right? Lumber whack. Trees are really amazing, but while these towering giants grace our landscapes and vital lifelines, they also carry potential hazards. Canadian tree feller Jeremy Cadot learned this lesson firsthand in 2017. Jeremy was working to cut down a particularly massive tree using his chainsaw. Just when he was doing it, he heard a very weird cracking sound. Suddenly, the tree began to split apart, threatening to pull him with its weight. One wrong move, and they'd have needed a spatula to peel him off the forest floor. It turned out that the base of the tree was rotten, which Jeremy hadn't realized until it was too late. The trunk was weakened by decay, and it split vertically up the middle. It's a dangerous phenomenon known as a Barber chair, similar to the old Barber chairs that tilted backward. Through sheer luck or quick reflexes, Jeremy managed to leap away just in time and narrowly avoided meeting his maker. Now this is what you call a stroke of tremendous luck. Helmet savior. Imagine being in the shoes of US Marine Sam Arnold, facing the brutal reality of war in Afghanistan. In 2013, during a routine scouting mission, Sam's squad found themselves in the crosshairs of a sniper's aim. As chaos erupted all around, they sprang into action, ready to confront the danger head-on. Suddenly, a bang echoed through the air. The sniper had taken aim at Sam as it hurtled straight towards him. Surprisingly, he remained untouched. Yes, the helmet literally saved his life. Sam emerged from the unforgivable situation without a scratch. However, he was obviously a bit shaken. The chances of surviving a sniper's aim is extremely low, yet Sam's sturdy helmet and quick reflexes saved the day. With nerves of steel, he remained composed, even in the face of danger. In the aftermath of the incident, as the squad regrouped and assessed the situation, they realized that helmets are true life saviors. Conveyor mishap. Now buckle up, because this one is truly a crazy tale that'll make you rethink workplace safety forever. Just try to picture this scene with me for a second. It's 2008, and Matthew Lowe, a 25-year-old factory worker in Barnsley, UK, is going about his day near a computer-controlled conveyor. Suddenly, his overalls get snagged in the machinery, and in a terrifying instant, he's pulled back and trapped against the conveyor, rolling towards a mere 5-inch gap. Talk about a nightmare scenario. With no time to spare, Matthew's quick thinking saves his life as he squeezes his head through a slightly larger gap, narrowly avoiding being trapped. But the incident was far from over. The machine devoured his clothes, and nearly every inch of his body froze in fear. Surprisingly, he remained conscious, which helped him survive the whole thing. When help arrived, paramedics were stunned to find him alive during all the devastation. With 6 surgeries and a forest of metal rods later, Matthew defied the odds and made an incredible recovery within 18 months. Rocky situation. Sumbora from Cambodia defied the odds and survived 4 days trapped between 2 giant rocks in the Cambodian jungle. This happened in 2019 when the 28-year-old man ventured into the dense Shipwrecked mountain jungle in search of bat droppings to sell as fertilizer. Little did he know, his routine adventure would turn into an international survival story covered by news outlets worldwide. On his route, he ventured into a small, rocky hollow where he dropped his torch. As he reached for the fallen torch, fate took a cruel turn, causing him to slip and become wedged tightly between the unforgiving rocks. There was no way he could get out. Now we have heard many famous stories of people who were stuck in the same situation but did not make it or had to give up an appendage. But not this guy. With no food, water, or means of escape, Sumbora endured unimaginable agony for 4 long days. Even his cries for help were mostly unheard in the wild. Fortunately, his worried brother discovered him and alerted the authorities. It took a painstaking rescue operation involving 200 rescuers working tirelessly for around 10 hours to free him from his rocky prison. The incredible photo captured during the rescue operation shows Sumbora's story of survival. After his miraculous rescue, Sumbora was transported to a provincial hospital to recover from this incident. Despite being dangerously weak, he eventually returned to full health. In response to this extraordinary incident, the Cambodian police chief declared Shipwrecked Mountain off-limits for climbing. Skiing fever. In April 2022, an experienced skier from the famous French skiing group, the Les Pout, was cruising down the slopes in the French Alps. Suddenly, disaster struck. With a sickening thud, the skier plunged straight through the ice into a deep crevasse. This is when he started plummeting a terrifying 49 feet before managing to wedge his skis in and come to a halt on a thin ledge. Just imagining that gives me shivers. Thanks to a stroke of luck and the quick actions of fellow skiers, he was eventually rescued after hours of intense effort. But here's the kicker. This wasn't an isolated incident. Warmer temperatures in 2022 led to more people hitting the slopes, resulting in a drastic increase in crevasse falls. Now, you might catch me lounging on a warm, sunny beach any day, but as for skiing, that's a hard pass from me after hearing this chilling tale. Whirlpool madness. Can you imagine tumbling into a whirlpool of water right in the middle of the sea? No, right? Well, for these guys, this crazy thought was a reality, and it was all captured in a viral video. The footage allegedly shows someone plummeting into the Monticello Dam in California. But hold your horses, because reality is far from scary, but chilling nevertheless. As it turns out, the video wasn't even recorded in California. It was filmed at the Sapua Dam in India, which is a much safer locale for swimming and camping. Sure, it may look hair-raising, but the guy in the video probably only fell about 18 feet into the water. Nothing close to the 200-foot drop at the Monticello Dam. But let's not downplay the risk here. Falling into any dam, even one that's deemed less dangerous like Sapua, can still be quite dangerous. There's always the chance of landing at the wrong angle and getting hurt. Fortunately, everyone remained safe. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do like and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the upcoming amazing videos. Thank you once again.